Welcome back to our workshops. This workshop is organized by the Student Services Department of AUIS with the help of Communications Department and IT Department. My name is Lawen Siron and I am the Student Services Coordinator at AUIS. Today's topic is about taking a minor in math as an AUIS student. My guests to speak about this topic is Dr. Mazen Boukhuzam, who is the chair of the MNS department. I think most of you know him. And also my other guest is Mr. Shad Farhad, who is the founder of MathFest. To begin with the webinar, I would like to give both of the guests the opportunity to introduce themselves. But just before we begin, I would like to remind all of our viewers, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that now and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our webinars and videos. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Lawen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. To begin with the webinar, I'd like to first give the opportunity to Dr. Mazen to introduce himself for the people who don't know him. I believe that most students know Dr. Mazen. He's been here for a long time. And also speak briefly about our topic, which is taking a minor in math at AUIS. Please go ahead, Dr. Mazen.
Thanks again, Lawen. Yes, it's been a long time at AUIS. This is year 8 for me. Let me give a little bit of background for those people who don't know my background. I'm Lebanese, was born in Lebanon. My education was all in Lebanon until I joined the American University of Beirut. I did a bachelor's degree in mathematics there and then a master's degree. And then I went on for PhD. I went to the University of Cambridge. I got my PhD from there. I visited several universities when I was doing my PhD. It was for a year and a half in Texas, Austin, as a visiting graduate student. And I graduated 2002, I think, and went back to Lebanon for a couple of years. I was an assistant professor at the Notre Dame University, NDU, for 2 years. And then from there, I went to Kuwait, where I stayed for 8 years before coming to AUIS. At AUIS, I've been everywhere. It's been 8 years. So I think I became chair the second year I came to AUIS, and did quite a lot of work in the math and science department since then, and became chair, and then I became dean for 2.5 years. I'm now back as the chair of the department, but just to find a way to get into the minor in math issue. The math and science department at AUIS is very much like a faculty of science or arts and science, for example, at AUB. It should be the natural house for the classical majors like math, physics, chemistry, biology, and of course, many other modern ones like computer science and others. We've been trying to position ourselves in a way that we can offer these classical majors if possible, or other majors that may be appealing to the market here in Kurdistan or internationally. We grew the medical lab science inside our department. That was an excellent step, and it took a huge effort. And however, it's a medical topic, and after we worked hard on it, it flew away. So now they are their own department. Our next move is to start something along these lines of these majors. And it's always good to start with minors, to test the ground, see what the student interest is. And in addition, the math minor, I've had a lot of students asking me to open a math minor. There's a lot of interest among students. So we finally were able to do that a year ago, I guess. And the problem is that we launched it at a time of the Corona crisis, and so it didn't get a lot of attention because of that. So This is why I want to thank you for having me today and try to
Absolutely.
inform the students about the possibilities of the math minor and as many information as we can to direct them in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mazen. I agree with you. Recently, I just came back to AUIS 2 years ago after graduation. And then recently, I've been meeting so many students. And once I ask them, what is your major? They either say medical lab science, or they're trying to do it or they are thinking of doing that. So it's very attractive. I agree with you. Hopefully the math minor will get the same attention as that does, because I think it's as much as important, if not even more. Kakshad, would you mind giving a brief introduction about yourself and also MathFest to our viewers, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I have not been around or seen AUIS faces in a long time. I'm Shad Farhad, and I am a math teacher and lecturer. I've taught at AUIS and at the Classical School of the Medes, and I'm Dr. Mazen's student from the first couple of years he was at AUIS. I'm here to give the side of the market that I have been around in the last 4 or 5 years, that I know about, and I founded the MathFest along with a couple of my friends and Dr. Mazen, which was done in the first year in 2016, and we tried a couple of more times afterwards, and it was a very successful event with a lot of collaboration between other universities, where we created a society, and that was the whole goal of the MathFest. It initially started out by Dr. Mazen and I, but it evolved from the math minor. So it was a child of the math minor to begin with. I've always been interested ever since the first day I went into Dr. Mazen's class into studying mathematics as a major and as a career, but I did not have the chance, and we worked towards the MathFest, but I left Dr. Mazen in AUIS, and he worked towards the math minor, and I'm very proud that it will be available and is available soon to students, and I'll be giving the student side of a math minor and how that will benefit you, and Dr. Mazen will be giving the more technical and academic side on what's or how it would benefit anyone. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions in the comments. I will read them while I will ask my own questions as well. But firstly, I would like to ask Dr. Mazen, if possible, and then Kakshad as well. In your opinions, in what realistic scenarios could students make use of taking a minor in math in the real life out there, not on paper, and real scenarios? How could students benefit from it, do you think?
Okay, so you're asking about the practical side of taking the math minor. I would say that this is one of the important sides. There is another side, if I may mention this also. There's an external factor, there's an internal factor to taking a minor. First of all, the internal factor, in my point of view, is it's related not just for the math minor. It's related to any minor. A student taking a minor is a student that is taking an additional step, an extra step. It shows, if you put it on your file, that you have a minor, not just in math, in any other field, shows that you are a serious student. You're somebody who is seeking knowledge, somebody who's trying to elevate your status. So in general, there's this initiative coming from inside, and math minor in particular is something that is pretty on its own. I mean, math is the queen of all sciences, and there is an aesthetic value in it. People like it for its own beauty, for its own the pleasure of being in a course and learning something new. Learning, for example, why there is more than one infinity. What does it mean to have a hierarchy of infinities? You hear about topology, and many people, just wonder about these pretty titles that they hear, and they'd like to be exposed to these ideas. So this is the internal side. Math is a beautiful subject. If for people who are interested, the fact that there are countable sets and uncountable sets, and how that relates to conceptual things in their life. These are pretty things, pretty new ideas that people like to open a window in their mind to see it and have the opportunity to be exposed to that and wonder about them. And very much related to philosophy, very much related to music. I mean, math is an amazing, pretty subject on its own. That is internally. Now, externally, if you want to talk about market, if you want to talk about how that helps students in finding jobs, it helps them tremendously. I mean, there are a variety of jobs that would appreciate a math minor, irrespective of which major you are doing. To begin with, having a math minor on your transcript, on your CV, it itself elevates your status, right? When there's an employer, when there is a hiring manager looking into your file, they know that this is a serious person. They know that this is a person that, you know, is interested in intellectual abilities. They know that you have very strong critical thinking skills. They know that you're a learner. So as a personality, you present yourself in a way that you stand out from the rest of the crowd. Just having it there is important. You know, I think, Lawin, you know that most of AYS students target the private market. And for private company, for a hiring manager or an employer, they want to hire people that add value to their company. And definitely knowledge of the subject matter is important. But the analytic skills are extremely important too. You want to hire somebody that can learn, can apply their mind, can contribute, can be creative. So math minor is really an indicator for all these things. So this is in terms of the market and the job prospects. And in Kurdistan, maybe you and Shad may know more about the market, but internationally, having a math minor is such an attractive thing for employers. That is in terms of the market when you talk about companies, about work. But also a lot of students contemplate graduate studies. And that too is a place where math minor is extremely helpful. You apply to the United States to a certain university and you're interested in a scholarship, for example. They know that maybe if they give you a teaching assistant scholarship, there's so much that you can do, or a research assistant even because of the analytic skills. Or even if you're not applying for a scholarship, even if you're applying to a good university, having a math minor there shows that you're somebody who is building your profile, somebody who's building knowledge. So it's an amazing thing to have on the CV. I have no doubt that students who will be able to put the math minor on the transcript, on the CV, they will elevate their status. They will definitely benefit from this.
I totally agree with you, Dr. Mazen. I myself don't have a very good or close relationship with math. I've never been very good with math, but I've always admired the people who took math seriously. And because I didn't have that close relationship with math, I realized the commitment and discipline for anyone needs to excel in math. And also just to have that minor added to your resume or CV, I believe exactly what you said. It shows that you're committed to whatever you want to do, and you have the discipline to elevate yourself. Before I will go to Kashaf to ask for his opinion as well, but after that, Dr. Mazen, I'd like to come back to you and ask you about academia. So some students at AYS are interested in going for postgraduate or graduate studies and then come back, for example, to AYS and lecture. After Kakshat's opinion, I would like to come back and talk about that. Kakshat, in your opinion, talking about realistic scenarios, how do you think students can benefit from the math minor?
So what I will be talking about is something that I don't know whether Dr. Mazen remembers himself or not, but this is something that Dr. Mazen has told me before, and I've seen it play out in real life in my career, and as I've done things after graduation. I currently own a business, and I can speak and vouch as a business owner and also as an employee, because I'm an employee and I have an employee before, and I also have employees. So I've been on both sides of the spectrum, if you may say. And what I will say is more practical than what Dr. Mazen said, which is that anyone who has studied mathematics, any extent of mathematics, has some hierarchy of logic in their brains that is going to benefit them in the real world. And this is you can call this soft talk, but the real practical and technical talk is that whoever has studied any extent of these math courses that we have learned before in my degree, or Dr. Mazen has learned in his degree and is still pursuing in his research, and anyone who would be studying a math minor, is that it would acquire you knowledge in a lot of things that you need in terms of a career, in terms of data. And I've mentioned this to a lot of my friends, to a lot of my students, that the world out there, the economies out there, the jobs out there are data driven nowadays, and big data and understanding of data is very, very important. I am planning to go and grow my career in data now in the future, and I wouldn't have been able to if I didn't focus my interest in mathematics before, and I still have a long way to go and fill up my gaps with anything that I don't know about mathematics. So a math minor at AYS is very little commitment to the investment it's very little investment that you make in terms of the return that you get. You get a very, very big return on that investment later on, whether you decide to go into academia, whether you decide to go into a career, whether you decide to go and own a business. The more you are with numbers, the more you sit with numbers, and the more you study numbers, the better you understand them, the better your business is going to do, and the better you're going to achieve things as an employee and as an employer as well. So it goes without that. These are facts that I'm just reiterating and I'm saying out loud. In Suli and in the market in Kurdistan, because it's a very amateur and primitive and early market, the things that Dr. Mazen said that he mentioned about the market abroad in terms of academics, in terms of careers and all of that, doesn't apply just yet. A math minor is not a shining star on your resume and on your CV, but it will soon become something like that. So if you're one of the early ones who've taken the math minor, and whatever I'm saying right now sounds like an advertisement for the math minor, but there's nothing in it for me. It's just advice that I'm giving out right now for anyone who's thinking about it or hasn't thought about it. It's going to become a shining star in the near future, because whether you decide to go into engineering or mathematics itself, or business and own a business, or work in any of the fields of business, and in the sciences as well, you will need data. You will need to do research, and the more you know, the easier it's going to be for you to catch up. And the world is on a very fast pace right now in terms of data and data analysis and business analytics and all of the things that Kaglawan mentioned earlier on. So you're not losing anything, and you're actually benefiting by doing it early on. I don't know the technical details in what goes into the math minor exactly. This is Dr. Mazen's area, and Dr. Mazen will emphasize on that later on. But no matter what is in the math minor as a package, you will benefit from it in terms of a career, in terms of business, in terms of your own growth later on.
Thank you so much, Kakshad. I'd like to also mention that the market has become so dynamic in Kurdistan. Even though that you mentioned, Kakshad, it's still amateur, but during the past 10 years, so many opportunities have risen that we didn't even imagine. So many parents just want their kids to go to the public universities that have the highest ranking in grades. For example, being a doctor, being an engineer, being a pharmacist, which there's nothing wrong with this. But if you think about this, in 2013, when I joined AUIS, when they told me, go to the business department, because there will be new opportunities for you, I wasn't so sure about it. But in 2018, I graduated. The opportunities were unimaginable, because the market is changing so fast, especially here in Kurdistan, because no opportunities are rising. And also, if you're not imagining currently that the math minor will do anything for you in 4 years or 3 years, you have to think about it again, because again, the market is changing so fast. Dr. Mazen, I'd like to come back to you and then talk about academia. If students are seeking chances to go study and then come back and teach, do you think the math minor could be beneficial in that area?
Absolutely. The question is, when you graduate from AOIS, the question is, which path do you want to take in academia? You want to apply to some decent universities. And decent universities, you're not the only person who's applying to these universities. There's a big competition. So you have a university getting a huge number of applicants. You need to distinguish yourself. A student with a math minor, let's say, okay, we're talking, for example, let's say engineering. An engineering student with a math minor will look completely different to the committee of the graduate school that are studying hundreds of applicants. So having a math minor definitely distinguish the student, and it's kind of a guarantee that the student can continue their graduate work. A lot of topics depend on knowledge of math. Knowledge is important. Critical thinking skills are even much more important. I mean, whether we're talking about graduate school, whether you're talking about the market, things. I mean, Shad was mentioning, you were mentioning too, that the market changed really fast. I mean, few years you find a completely different environment. So sometimes you learn information from a certain university. This information, you can find it on Google. The most important thing is how you apply your mind, how you use the information. The critical thinking skills are like extremely important. So these are the things that employers look for. These are the things that graduate schools look for. So, and when you land in a good university because of a good profile, good degree plus math minor possibly, that's the beginning of a whole path where you can grow in a good university, hopefully getting your PhD, and maybe coming back to AOIS to help us, build the university in here.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that answer. I'd like to move on to a bit of technicalities about the math minor. And my question is that what would be the best combinations of major minors if students were thinking about a minor in math? Because constantly students think about doing a good combination. I'm visited by students daily talking about what would go with their major, what would be a good minor, how they can benefit, how could that be a completion to their major. Do you think there are currently at AUIS good combinations between the majors we offer?
Math minor should be accessible to all majors, but I agree that there are certain majors that have a shorter path to it than others. For example, I'll start with engineering. Engineering take already some of the math courses that are included in the math minor. The math minor includes Calculus 3, for example, Math 331. That is a requirement for engineers. So any engineering student that takes Calculus 3, it's already a free course in their pocket. They also take differential equations, Math 332. That's also required from all engineers. So here are 2 courses. You still have 3 courses to finish your minor. If you have some empty spots in your semesters, you can fill it with the few more courses. You still need linear algebra. And linear algebra is advisable not for engineers, for anybody. Anybody should take linear algebra. It's a very important course. Kachad was mentioning the data mining and today this is a huge thing in the industry. They use linear algebra extensively. I mean, you have to be an expert in linear algebra to work with these things. So you have got to take these 3 courses. These are basics. Engineers, it should be an easy path to take because 2 of them are required courses. The 2 other remaining courses are discrete math, which is a very interesting course. By the way, discrete math is a course in other universities that is required from some of the engineering disciplines. Electrical engineering, they are required in other universities to take discrete math. So it's a very important course. And the last course that students can take, that's the last additional, possibly theoretical, if I may say, course. It gives you a taste of what math students study in their major. Students have two options. They can take partial differential equations, or they can take, and again, partial differential equations has huge applications. And or they can take introduction to mathematical analysis. So engineering students, in my point of view, are in a good position to go for that minor, and that's an excellent combination. I would advise IT students to do it too. IT students, I think they can take discrete math, and they take some of the math, so they have to build a little bit more because they don't take all the requirements. But they have space in their schedule. They can build towards it. IT plus math minor is really good. Software engineering plus math minor is really good. Even in the business side, business students, especially when you talk about the quantitative side of the business, the finance, for example, math minor is also very good. Now, again, I mean, it depends which career you're aiming at, but these are the things I can think about. Every student should be able to do it. It is positioned in such a way that every student should be able to do it. But I think these three majors, they go well with the math minor. They go well with math, especially for students who want to do graduate studies or who want to stand out from the crowd when they apply to certain particular companies.
I agree. I even had, during my time at AUIS, I had friends who were studying IT, and they were taking, for example, discrete math to understand the logics of programming and coding, and that helped them massively. They were expressing that like every day, saying how discrete math helps them understand the basics of programming and coding. And I myself, I took some coding classes, and I agree that the logic behind it is all math. If you understand it, you can do wonders with computers. That's just an example for IT.
If I may add an example, Kaklawan,
please.
Story. I like to tell my students a lot of stories in my classes. So if I may throw a story here,
please.
I have a friend that teaches at AUB. He's in the business department, teaches MBA courses. Now we were talking about what students are doing these days when they graduate. And he was describing to me how difficult the market is. I mean, it's very competitive these days. He was telling me about a Lebanese student that finished MBA and did the amazing job, really high grades. He went to Canada and he couldn't find a job there.
Wow.
He had to do another master's, and he was doing some training in a certain company. He was begging to get a good job after MBA, a lot of qualifications and so on. So many people have MBAs. And he told me that the hiring manager of that company told him that if you really want to find a full-time position at our company, you're supposed to take some courses in programming. And there were certain courses that he was supposed to take. It's kind of a certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And so he cannot be employed without having that extra dimension.
Wow.
We're talking about a business student doing MBA, doing all it takes in his career. To get a job, he had to do certain courses in programming. Programming, for business students, he did not take a lot of computer science. What matters is logic, critical thinking skills. He has to take something, he has to get a new book in a new topic, read it, learn it. He has to apply his mind. This is where math comes into the equation. So just to give you an example, this is an example that a friend of mine told me about, and we're talking about people that graduated from top universities. Mm-hmm. And this is the market. That's what's required these days.
Totally. I have I took IT as a minor, and then programming and coding are becoming like a separate language. They're like, you should know English and Arabic, and then programming and coding is a plus. Absolutely, yeah. I totally agree with you. Kakshat, I'd like to get your perspective as a student. Could you talk about your experience as an AUIS student who was interested in math. I believe that you used to have a club, you used to have a society in AUS. Could you briefly talk about that, please? And what was it like? What was it like for you to as a student?
So, as I mentioned very briefly when we started the webinar after Dr. Mazen, that we started the idea of the festival that we call the Math Fest and the society and the club you talked about from the idea of a minor. I was sitting down with Dr. Mazen, and he encouraged me to take more interest in math, and I went automatically on the track because I was very interested and passionate about it. But as we worked out the math minor, as he tried to create it before I graduated, it didn't work out, and I couldn't take it. So instead, I shifted my focus towards a society that we could collect mathematicians and academians who work in mathematics around the region, from Koya, from Erbil, from Suli, and we tried to, in my time at least, collect them in a festival and do competitions for high school students, for university students, so that we create a society and we create collaborations in between these people, because there is no mathematical society in Iraq and in Kurdistan as of now. All around the world and the other countries, there are mathematical societies that are very, very intertwined together, that have strong networks that give each other research and updates about the mathematical world. And also, in addition to all of that, they help each other out to enhance and to develop the market in general, and in mathematics more specifically as well. So I believe it's very early to say that we have succeeded in creating that society and that network, but it was a start. And there are people who are still advancing it after me with Dr. Mazen at AUIS, and it was a step forward towards that. So that's the answer to the question.
Thank you. I believe that we might have many students at times that they believe that they're the only one who are interested in math, because math sometimes could be a very difficult subject. But I can reassure all of the students, please talk to Dr. Mazen if you're interested in math. I know that there are ways to connect with more people, and you can delve more into math. So for any students out there who believe that they want to connect with other people who are interested in math, please talk to Dr. Mazen and Kakshad as well. I'd like to go to a question from our audience. Kak Hassan asks, in your opinion, for software engineering, does a math minor act as a booster for existing opportunities, or does it provide opportunities that otherwise wouldn't exist with just an undergrad degree? Dr. Mazen or Kakshad, any of you, if you would like to take the question.
My comment, I mean, I am not an expert on software engineering. The only thing I could say is that it definitely gives you a big boost in software engineering. Now, I think he's talking about the effect on the undergraduate level. Mm-hmm. The reasoning that you get from a math minor is amazing. I mean, when you take the math minor courses from discrete math to mathematical analysis, the structure of logic that you gain will benefit you immensely in software engineering, in reasoning, in other courses, and that is not an understatement by any means, to be honest with you. I've spoken with a lot of people that can distinguish immediately between people that have a structured mind and the reasoning, and people that don't have it. Students that have it and students that don't have it. So on the undergraduate level, it definitely shows. An instructor would immediately distinguish between their students from the way they ask the question about, whether they will immediately distinguish whether there's a structured mind or not. I've always told my students, the students with structured mind, it kind of like shows on them, it shows on their life. One funny thing I used to tell my students is that somebody with a structured mind, with a flow of logic in their mind, you go to their bedroom and you find their bedroom very tidy and nice and organized. Well, people, it's a an exaggeration possibly, but I what I would say is that, you know, when you have a structured mind, it just affects everything around you.
True.
So it does affect software engineering. It affects every topic you take in your undergraduate and your prospects in you know, finding good jobs.
Absolutely. Kakshad, you also mentioned, I think before the webinar, we talked a bit about the big data, how companies use big data, and also during the webinar, you talked about big data and how companies are now using it. I believe the math minor comes in plays again if you would like to get into that field, right?
So as I mentioned before, I'm not the expert on this, but all that I know comes from talks that I've had with Dr. Mazen or research that I've done myself online. And I know for a fact, whether you, as mentioned before, own a business or are an employee or are an employer, you will benefit a lot from data because everything in the world is data driven right now. And that's why there is a lot of demand on it. So how you understand data, that's a very different story. This is not what we're talking about, because that is a bigger commitment. It's a career, it's a degree on its own. Later on, if you are interested, you would study a data science degree or a data analysis degree or a business analytics degree or a statistics degree, and you get into that. That's the practical side of it. But as I mentioned very briefly before the webinar, and now very, very briefly in the webinar as well, for you to have the opportunity to study a math minor, which is a very small package alongside your own major, gives you a, you can say, the pedestal to start whatever you want to start later on. Whether it's going into statistics, going into data science, going into other mathematical fields, going into engineering, going into anything that will require you to have this. And I didn't mention this explicitly, although Dr. Mazen mentioned it very explicitly, that this benefits your way of thinking, your logic, and the structure that there is to it. And if you have done a math minor in uni, not only that it will stand out on your resume and in your career, it will also help you pick things up a lot faster. And I've experienced this on my own. If I weren't interested in math and I started all of the research that I'm doing on my own and the preparations I'm doing on my own for the later steps that I'm planning on going and doing, it would have been a lot more difficult. So if you have a math minor, it gives you that pedestal to start and pick things up online, because everybody can benefit from the resources that we have online nowadays, and pick things up on their own. So if you have a math minor and if you learned from the classes in the minor things that you would need later on, it would be easier to pick up as you go.
Perfect. I'd like to, for my last question, I'd like to get both of your perspectives, both from a student's perspective or a former student's perspective, and then from Dr. Mazen as a lecturer from his perspective. Math could be intimidating sometimes for students because it's a difficult subject. It could be a difficult subject. Do you believe that the math minor would be an option for every student, Dr. Mazen?
Okay, I wouldn't characterize math as a difficult subject, and I've told my students a lot that, you know, difficult and easy is a relative concept. If you're an expert on playing basketball, then you'll find it very easy and you'll enjoy it. If this is the first time you try to score and you throw the ball, I don't know how many times, and you fail to score, and then to you, you know, bringing that ball into that ring together is an impossibility for you. So if you know a subject, you always enjoy it, you play with it. The job of the instructors, our job is to facilitate math. And to be honest with you, math is easy. If you do it the right way, math is a beautiful subject. Mathematicians who put the first concepts that we study today did not do them in suffering. They got an interesting idea and they just, you know, went behind it and they discovered some very beautiful thoughts. So they were enjoying it. So I would say math should be an easy ride, an enjoyable one, if you do it the right way, the right approach. It does include training. Like any sports, if you don't train, you wouldn't enjoy it. So if you are interested in putting the effort to train yourself, it is a beautiful subject. And I'm telling you, knowing the subjects that are involved in the math minor, there are certain concepts that, when you get introduced to them, it's like something that it's so appealing. You say, aha, I wish I thought about this before. I mean, they're beautiful, natural ideas. It's worth seeing, in my point of view. So I wouldn't say it's difficult, and I advise anyone that has the ability to do a math minor if there's space in their major, because some majors don't cover all the 120 credits required from them. I advise them to follow it, and it is our job to facilitate the learning rather than making it difficult.
Perfect. Kashad, your perspective on taking a math minor as a student.
I would say.
I know. Sorry, I know you didn't. You didn't do math minor, but I believe that you were more than interested in math.
As you mentioned, I wouldn't say from my own experience because I haven't experienced it just yet. But I would say opposite to what Dr. Mazen said, that math is not everybody's cup of tea. So it's not meant for everybody. But it depends, and as mentioned before, it is a very small commitment compared to a math major, for example, and the amount of commitment and the amount of investment you make and the return on it is very high. The return on a math major, as Dr. Mazen has advised me himself before, is very low. You have to put in a lot more to get some out of it or to get more out of it. But I would say a math minor is not a very big commitment. All you need is passion and some commitment and some dedication and willpower to go through a math minor. Whoever is committed and dedicated enough can do a math minor. So these are not two opposing statements. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I'm also saying that you have to be dedicated and committed for you to be able to do a math minor successfully. And why would you even do a math minor if you are not interested in math? So you have to clarify that out for yourself first. It will benefit you in the market, as we've been mentioning over and over in the webinar. But you have to also have some interest and some base passion for it to encourage you to continue it, because it's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be impossible either.
I totally agree. Even not related to math minor or any other major, when students ask me, they want to talk about their majors, what decisions they want to make. I think the most important advice to give to students is that think about what you are looking for. Are you looking at opening your own business? Are you looking at working for a company? Or are you looking at studying master's, doctorates? So before making any decisions, just think about what you really want and then take that decision. I think that's the most important basis for anything to excel at. This concludes my questions for today. I'd like to also give you the opportunity, Dr. Mazen and Kashad, to say whatever you would like to say at the end of the webinar. Before that, I'd like to again thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for taking the time. First, Dr. Mazen, if you'd like to have a closing statement, please go ahead.
Lahi, thank you so much, Klawan, for giving us this opportunity to talk about this important subject. I am hoping that we build a community at AUIS of students like the same, similar to what Shad did when he was a student here. He gathered a group of students. They did a math club. They did the math fest. So I hope this community will continue to exist and continue to grow. Math minor could be kind of like one of the landmarks we can put in place to keep building towards better opportunities and better options for the students. To the students, I'd like to tell them that I'm right now the chair of the Math and Science Department. Whoever is going to be the chair of the Math and Science Department, we will not be able to help you unless you declare your minor. So I really would like to encourage all students who are interested in math minor to go and declare their minor, because once they declare their minor and they ask for a certain course, the department will support them, will make sure to offer the course for them. If nobody declares it, that just put their names there out of interest without declaring their minor, it will be difficult for us to have a case for them to keep a certain course running. So please, students who are interested, I encourage them to declare the minor. And if you have any questions about details of the minor, feel free to email me, to ask me. We also have Ms. Shams Watha. She's the coordinator of the Math Center, Math and Science Center. Shams has been very active as well, and she can give good advice. She was one of the people in the group of Shad, the founders of the Math Club and the Math Fest, so she can be very helpful. She's on campus if you want to pass by and ask her in case you are there, or you could shoot me an email. I would be happy to give you additional details.
Great. Kakshat, any closing statements?
I don't think I have much to say, but all I have to say is that, again, it's very, very important for you to make up your mind and then go for the math minor. But the opportunity of having the math minor around is a big opportunity for whoever is interested in a career that involves the math minor in it, and a lot of careers will involve math minors in it, or math generally in it, as we go forward towards the future. So I encourage anyone who is thinking about taking it to go ahead and take it. I personally want to study mathematics and or data science later on. So wherever I go around the world, whichever university I go, I'd have to do a bridging course. And the bridging course already involves these classes and courses that Dr. Mazen talked about. So I will be in communication with the registrar and with Dr. Mazen to see if I will be able to take a math minor. Maybe I'll still be able to be the first registered student as a math minor even after graduation. I don't know whether that's possible or not, but this is encouragement for whoever else is interested, and not to be scared and to go and pursue it, because it's definitely a huge return on investment, and it's definitely something that will strengthen your back in terms of knowledge and in terms of logic and structure of mindset and thinking that you will later on benefit from.
Great. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here, Kakshat and Dr. Mazen. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the webinar. I hope I can see you all next week on Wednesday, the same time. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day, please. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good day. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.